Hey guys, to help run the forums, host the website, and travel, we've introduced a universal service fee for in-depth coverage, including this video. The goal is to be transparent and unbiased. This is not an endorsement. It's a privilege to serve you. Let's get into it. Hey guys, what's going on? So I am here checking out a pretty cool electric bike called the Beach Bum from a company called Tower. So yeah, it's definitely meant for beach cruising, but it has a lot of cool subtle features that really make it utilized for that purpose. So let's go ahead and check it out. So the Tower Beach Bum, the first thing you'll notice is that it has that that beach bike aesthetic. It has really swoopy lines that are coming throughout the frame, from the headset up front, you know, arcing up and then going down, and then from the bottom tube, the down tube there, that one kind of arcs around the tire and then swoops back down into the rear. So definitely has the beach aesthetic, you know, the beach look to it. Also, the big balloon tires are very comfortable, and those are also a beach aesthetic to it. The swept back handlebars. I mean, it's very much a comfort bike. I mean, that should be pretty clear. It's got, aside from the tires, also the other touch points like the pedals, the seat, the grips. I mean, it's very much for a comfort style of ride, and I can tell you that it is pretty comfortable. There's only one small thing that I would add to make it a little more comfy, but we'll get to that when we go over the mechanical specifications from front to back. But yeah, that's kind of the idea. Is it's kind of a subtly, like, it has a lot of subtle features, like passive features that you don't have to do anything to kind of use. It doesn't have a lot of buttons and controls and things on it, but it has a lot of small things that make it good for that purpose for beach cruising. So let's go ahead and start way up at the front with the tires, because this is actually, believe it or not, one of my favorite things about the Beach Bum. These are Fat Frank from Schwalbe. The tires called Fat Frank. They have a lot of cool things in them. Aside from the look, you know, they're a 26 by 2. 0.35. So aside from the look of it, you know, they have the white wall on there, kind of a creamish white wall. Maybe it started out white from the factory and wound up being cream, but anyways, it's like a cream white wall. They have the brown for the tread. The pattern on it is very much for cruising. You're not going to get a whole lot of off-road use out of that, but you know, that's neither here nor there. But it does have a reflective stripe in it, which is really cool. If you wind up getting stuck pedaling around at nighttime, this reflective stripe will help out a lot for visibility from passing cars. But also there is a Kevlar belt that is inside of the tread here, between the tire and the tube. So that helps out a lot to prevent flat tires from happening, which, you know, if you're on a beach cruiser, typically if you're going to go, you know, beach bum around, if that's a verb, then you're probably going to be going somewhere with kind of a minimalistic sort of gear with you. You're probably not going to pack a ton of tools and patch kit and all that stuff. You probably just want to go ride out, you know, carry a surfboard or something, you know, maybe a picnic basket, I don't know. And so, yeah, carrying all that stuff with you is not something you're probably going to do or want to do. So this is definitely a pretty cool thing. Because that prevents you from having flats in the first place. There's some companies that put slime inside the tubes, which definitely is a good idea, or they put in Flat Attack, which is a better one in my opinion. But that doesn't stop the flat from happening. It makes it a lot easier to fix up, definitely, but it doesn't stop it. So anyways, I'm kind of getting it too far off. The Schwalbe Fat Franks on the Beach Bum have that Kevlar lining on there to prevent a flat from happening. So after conferring with my notes, the outer diameter of the rim is actually 40.7 from here to the other side. That's pretty wide. You know, that's a pretty good width for gripping onto these nice wide tires. So aside from the cushion that you have from the tires itself, you also have a rim that can handle that pretty well, which I like a lot, and double walled black rim. They go into the spokes here, the 13 gauge spokes, 36 holes, 100mm hub spacing. Nothing, you know, too amazing there. Pretty standard equipment. This is a rigid fork. This actually is an aluminum fork. A lot of times you see steel, especially with the threaded headset, but in this case it's actually an aluminum fork, so you save a little bit of weight there, which, by the way, the total weight of this bicycle is, from my measurements, 51.75 pounds. So just shy of 52 pounds with the battery on it, which that's a big battery, and we'll get to that. So the brakes are a Tektro Aries. This is a mechanical disc brake that comes into the 160mm rotors, and of course that's mirrored on the front as well as the back. Same sort of deal with the rim and the tire and the spokes as well, so that's all pretty standard front to back. You don't have a quick release up on the front wheel, and I guess that's a good thing for theft. You know, someone can just pluck off a quick release if you're beach bumming around, but in this case they have a 15mm nut there, so you know, it's a trade-off. You know, do you want to have something a little more secure with that 15mm nut, or would you rather have something easy to pack with you? It's really your choice. You could switch that out, I believe, if you wanted to, at least for the front. For the back, you've got a motor on the back, so not going to be switching that on a quick release. But let's go ahead and continue up. We talked about the fork, and also the headlight is pretty neat. So this typically goes with the electric system, but they have a nice metal mount, which is my preference. And one other cool thing is they have a waterproof connector for the light. And that's not a common thing. A lot of times you see just a chintzy little wire that kind of plugs into two little terminals, which, you know, it works, it saves on the cost. But in this case, they actually have a quick disconnect, which is cool, because this light, if you got to replace it, you just pop that guy right off, and there you go, replace it, and you're off to the races again. So I like that. That's pretty cool. It's kind of tight. You know, I should mention that is like the wiring here is a little tight, so this guy does kind of get tugged a tiny bit. So if you do take the bike and you toss it in the back of a truck per se, or some other example, then you might pluck this out. It's no big deal, you just put it right back in, but you know, it's just a little tight. So continuing on, you do have a 1-inch stem right here that kind of comes up and comes up to an angle, and that angle kind of comes up here to kind of help meet the hands of the rider, but more specifically the handlebars, which are pretty darn long. Pretty high rise here. They also sweep back a good, I'm just gonna guess 40 degrees or so. These ones come up quite a bit. So these are kind of the handlebars that I've mentioned before, where, you know, in some ways it kind of feels like you're driving a bus, you know, with your hands in a super comfy position, kind of out there, almost steering from the hips, is kind of the feeling you get, because these handlebars sweep back so much. And consider the alternative. If you had a straight handlebar that was right there, then you'd be gripping here versus gripping over there. And that, of course, if you were down here like a mountain bike, that would put your weight forward, that would put you in a very different riding position for a very different purpose. But in this case, the handlebars are perfect for beach bumming around. Alongside of that, they do have some leather stitched grips here with kind of an ergonomic edge. One thing to mention about that is that on the locking lever, this one does have a locking lever on it, which is this ring right here. You use kind of a 3mm Allen key to kind of loosen that up if you wanted to take it off, and it's pretty simple. This guy, on the other hand, is what we call friction mounted, where it's just wedged onto the handlebar, and it actually can rotate. You know, if you twist it enough, it'll rotate. So if you're taking it easy, which a beach cruiser is meant for, if you're taking it easy, not putting too much stress onto the handlebars, then it's not really a big deal. It's probably just going to stay put. They do have motor inhibitors on the brakes handle, so that's good. That stops the motor from going anytime you switch on the brakes, which is definitely nice. So continuing on talking about the frame, I did talk about the aesthetic of the frame, how it has like the swoopy lines in this matte black color, which from what I understand, it's the only color it comes in. But another cool feature about it that they specifically designed from Tower is that you can fit a U-lock into this position, like into this little, I guess, framework on the frame of the bicycle. So it's a fairly common thing in beach communities for bikes to, you know, as they say, grow legs and walk away. And it's kind of tough for folks to mount a U-lock without it just rattling around or tossing it in a backpack, you know, trying to add a little bit more convenience to the idea of using an electric bike or a bicycle in general. So what Tower did was they specifically had this frame made so that you could accommodate a U-lock in here. So the U portion, the bar, kind of goes down in here, and then the lock, like that cylinder, kind of rests over here. And then with the lock kind of wedged up against there, it kind of stays in a nice position. You can go beach bum around, pull it out, and lock it in. And that way you don't have, you know, the thing rattling around on this spot, or you don't have it on the back or in your backpack or something weighing it down. So this is a pretty cool feature about the frame that I haven't seen before. I've seen, you know, little casings that mount in the water bottle holders or something like that, and those, I don't know what it is, but those tend to fall apart a lot. And I've worked at a bike shop and I've seen that many times. But in this case, it's part of the frame, so it's certainly not going to break. One thing I should mention, you know, while we're at it, is that there are no water bottle provisions or bosses for, say, a pump or a toolkit or a lock. So that's one thing that would be kind of nice to see if they put that, I don't know, here or there. I'm not a bike designer, so I don't know if there was something in the way. Perhaps this battery mount would not warranted, or perhaps the curvature here wouldn't be a good spot for mounting that. But nonetheless, it's something we really like here at EBR. So continuing on, these are pretty standard cranks, 170 millimeter forged aluminum alloy, but the pedals are actually pretty neat. So these are a plastic Well-Go pedal, which the plastic pedals, a lot of times I'm a little critical of plastic, because the plastic pedals do go bad over time, faster than the ones that are made of complete metal. However, these ones are pretty comfy because you can actually use them barefoot. So on the platform here, you'll see that it has this what feels like sandpaper, but it's kind of like grip tape from a skateboard or something. But really what it is a platform to put your foot on here. And I actually tried it out barefoot before I started shooting the video, and it works. It was actually my first time riding a bicycle barefoot since I was like 10 years old or so. So it was definitely a new experience for me. You know, it's one of those things you never think about, you know, until you actually try it out. But it was a lot of fun, definitely new thing for me. So the frame does continue. We'll get to the electric system. The frame continues down these lines up on the seat post here. So this seat post is a 27.2 diameter. Let me double check that real quick. Actually has a quick release right here. You can pull the guy out and put him right up here. It's a fairly short, yeah, 27.2, fairly short seat post on there, and that's probably to accommodate the inside of the tubing here for the battery mount, because if it goes down too far, it'll interfere with that. Let's just go ahead and put that down, close up the quick release, and we're good to go. So this saddle is really comfy. This is probably like what, like a, say like a 9-inch wide saddle here with the faux leather from a company called Velo. Pretty comfy, really wide, definitely meant for kind of sitting down and taking it easy. Has the springs on the back here for added comfort, which they help out quite a bit. So one other feature to mention is this light. Let me go ahead and pluck it off here. So this is actually kind of like a loose light that comes with the bicycle. So this is part of the stock bike. But this is a red light that actually mounts onto the back. I've seen these a lot from bike companies. Usually they'll toss one in with a couple of AAA batteries. In this case, it actually lights up pretty well as far as the brightness is concerned. It has a couple of modes. But the cool thing about it is that it is USB rechargeable. So right here, you kind of open up that cover, you plug it in to a USB port, which by the way, there's one on the battery pack itself. And then you can charge up this little light, which is pretty cool. I like that a lot. It's not too uncommon to see something like this in a bike store go for a good, oh, I don't know, maybe 20, 30 bucks or so. So yeah, definitely pretty cool there. One last thing to mention on this side of the bike is the 40 millimeter provisions for the kickstand. So the kickstand is actually mounted in the rear of the bike, which is definitely brownie points for ElectricBikeReview.com, because when you push a bike backwards, the pedals move backwards with the movement of the wheel. And if you have a kickstand that's mounted in the center, what can happen is that the crank can come into contact with that and kind of prevent the bike from being pushed backwards. So it's kind of an intimidating thing when it happens the first time. You think something's going on. It's not really a big deal. You got to move this out of the way. But that is not really an issue when you have the kickstand mounted in the rear. So that's a pretty cool thing. Kind of mentioned the wheels, tires, spokes, and everything is all the same from the front and the back. The big difference being that in the back you have an 18 millimeter nut and a really thick axle to accommodate for the motor. Getting the motor off is definitely more difficult than the front, mostly because of the extra weight and also a couple of washers you need to get in the right spot. It's not complicated, but it is harder, mostly for the extra weight of the motor. But then again, you know, you got the nice tires, so you shouldn't be encountering flats terribly often. And yeah, so moving on to the other side of the bike, let's talk about the gearing, and then we'll jump into the electric system. So on the front, you have a single chain ring. That's a 44 tooth chain ring up in the front of the bike. And then that of course comes down the chain, which this chain is a zinc covered chain to prevent rust, say from salt water in a beach environment, for example. In the back you have a 14 to 34 tooth cassette back here from Shimano, and that's being controlled by the Shimano Tourney for the derailleur system. So that's pretty standard equipment. You know, it's really nice to see. So let's go ahead and jump into the electric system. We can start right here with the motor. So this motor is specifically tuned for tower electric bikes. They tuned this motor specifically for higher torque. So that means that it's meant for more torque, more low end, kind of get you going up the hill or started from a light, rather than a high top speed. So this bike does have a fairly comfortable top speed. I was going about, I think, maybe 21 or so. From the get-go, this bike is set for an 18-mile-an-hour top speed. You can change that yourself as the owner of the bike by going into the display and entering the password and changing it. But anyways, the point that I was getting at is that this motor is, the windings in the motor are specifically made for higher torque. So this is kind of like a fine-tuning thing that some other companies don't do. They just get a motor off the shelf, toss it out, and, you know, all's well. But in this case, they actually kind of tuned it up just a little bit for that, special purpose of, which I like a lot, because in all honesty, if you're going to be beach cruising around on a bike of this kind of geometry, you're probably not going to want to go fast. Continuing on, there is a disconnect for the motor that is right up here, and that disconnect, it's a little long. You know, sometimes you see it down, you know, towards the chainstay right here, but in this case it's up here. But anyways, that's the cabling that comes into the motor. Of course, that goes into the controller. This is the battery. So this is a 48 volt 14 amp hour battery that's mounted on the rear of the down tube. So this is a pretty big battery pack. This will go a healthy range. You know, 30 miles is very realistic when you're looking at a range for a bike like this. And of course, it has the charger port right here for the XLR plug, basic on-off switch. Let's go ahead and open that up and take the battery off and show you what it looks like. So the battery is physically mounted into position by using a key. The key isn't responsible for ignition, it only just mounts it on there for security. But you go ahead and get that out and untwist it and pull it up just a little bit. It's a lot easier with two hands. There we go. Get the guy out there. All right, and here you have the battery. This is the 48 volt 14 amp hour battery, and yeah, it does have a small little light on the top if you want to check the charge level in a general sense. We'll go ahead and set that down right here so I can show you another cool thing. So the controller for the bike is actually built into this position right here on the charger. So this is a pretty cool thing that you see in some electric bikes these days, where the controller is literally built into the battery casing. So that actually tightens things up. That way you don't have extra space down here or extra space up there for mounting a controller that kind of pops out. So it definitely keeps the aesthetic nice and tight, so long as you're okay with the battery pack. It does kind of limit you as to what you can do for power output, so you're probably not going to get a 30 amp controller or anything coming out of here because of its physical size, you know. But that's fine, because in this case it does exactly what you need it to do. A beach cruiser is not meant for like super high output. Like I said, you're not going to be going like 30 miles an hour on this thing under power, so I think this is great. Keeps everything nice and tight. This is the cadence sensor. This is a 12 magnet cadence sensor that is external. So you can replace this part pretty easy if something gets screwed up, but then again, it's not a sealed sensor, so you do get a little bit of cost savings on that realm. But that counts the rotations as you pedal when you're in pedal assist, and it will dull out the power as a result based on that reading. So the last thing to talk about on the electric side is the display, which is pretty darn simple. So you see there's a ton of real estate up here on the handlebars if you wanted to mount a phone or a water bottle or a coffee mug or a game of Monopoly or something like that. In this case, the display is pretty tiny, and that has a lot to do with it. So on this display, it doesn't tell you a whole lot. You've got the power level up there, the number 1, and that is adjusted with the plus or minus buttons to change the level of pedal assist that you get. Your speed is in the center, in the middle, and your battery level based on 5 bars is up in the top left. You can press the M button to scroll through from a trip set, a total odometer, a ride timer, and then back to normal. You can get into the settings menu if you press and hold the plus and minus button to go through a password. That's of course in the user's manual, and I'll let you guys get to that. But that will allow you to change the top speed of the bicycle under pedal assist, and a couple of other features. But yeah, this display is pretty darn tiny. I mean, there's no bones about it. You kind of saw it in comparison, but here's my thumb. So I mean, the actual display, the readable display, is about as large as the first digit of my thumb, which is pretty tight. I mean, that keeps everything, like I said, that kind of keeps everything nice. But if you want to count calories or miles, or if you are a very detail oriented person, then this is going to be a, kind of an obstacle for you. But you know, if you just want something that's quick and easy, that'll work, that'll go, that you can just see from a moment's glance, then this will be a good one. You know, just kind of take a quick glance at it, pedal assist one, crank it up, you're good to go. You know, this is definitely a no worries kind of display where you just want to get going and make things simple. So yeah, we talked about the light already. We did address that. So yeah, that's the mechanical, the electrical, the purpose of the bike. Let's go ahead and take it for a spin. My favorite part. All right, so here we are on the beach bum. I actually did ride around the lake for a little bit, but it turns out that like 80% of it is made of loose gravel. So I think I'll save that trail for a mountain bike someday. The beach bum is definitely mission tailored for beach cruising, which I like a lot. It's tough when you find a bike that they say, oh, this bike can do everything. You know, like there's some bikes that can do a couple of purposes just fine. That's perfectly possible. But in this case, the beach bum is really nice for beach cruising, and I like that. I like that it's meant for your purpose of beach riding. You do have some provisions on the very back for mounting a rear rack, but it's only on the part of the frame. So you'd have to get a rack that would mount to the frame by the dropout and also latch onto the seat post. If you wanted to get a rack and use it for commuting, you could, but again, that's kind of like, you know, it's kind of taking it a little bit away. This is kind of a fair weather sort of bicycle. The lights on here are definitely a good safety feature, along with the reflective stripes, so I like that part of it. The power output is pretty good. I'd say that when you crank it up to level 5, it puts out a lot of power, and that's for kind of like hill climbing. If you have a steep hill ahead of you, for a stop at the light, you can crank it up there and get going, which is nice. But if you just keep it there, then it definitely rockets pretty well. So if you're accustomed to it, if you're used to it like I am, then if you ride bikes a lot, or electric bikes especially, then it's no big thing. But if you get on the bike for the very first time, crank it up all the way to level 5 pedal assist and go for a ride, it can you know, it's a pretty big kick in the pants. One thing that I didn't note about the electric system on the throttle particular, let's go ahead and put you in a little bit, is that the throttle is active anytime that you have the bike in pedal assist or even off pedal assist. So this is always on so long as you have this button pressed. This button is not uniform. Some electric bikes, or trikes especially, you press that in and that will actually make the bike go backwards on throttle. Sometimes it's for a light, sometimes it's for a horn. In this case, it's just a toggle, an on-off toggle for the pedal assist at all. So in this case, I'm actually using full throttle, which is pretty fun, I gotta say. Under full throttle, you have access to the entire power band, so it'll just keep going, and it'll go up past 18 miles an hour, even if you haven't set the top speed yet. So that's pretty cool. I definitely like that. And with the big battery, with a 48 volt 14 amp hour battery, you're not worried about sucking up too much energy. Yeah, pretty maneuverable, I must say, at high speeds, which is quite rare for a bike that is this light. A lot of times you see more maneuverable bikes from something that's like 60 pounds or more. You know, like a cargo bike feels more stable at higher speeds on the weight. But yeah, fun stuff. All right, guys, so here we are checking out the Tower Beach Bum. I got the pedal assist cranked all the way up to level 5, and I got you pointed down at the battery as well as the bottom bracket. So let's go ahead and take it for a spin. Okay, so in level 5 pedal assist, you saw that it cranked up to max speed pretty quickly, and then the motor output didn't really go very much. Like, it didn't put out a whole lot of power because it had already reached top speed of the default, which is 18 miles an hour. I haven't set it for anything higher than that quite yet, but yeah, then I got to the little hill part, slowed down, and then let the power kick in again. So fun stuff. Okay guys, thanks for checking out the Tower Beach Bum with me. It's a pretty fun beach cruiser. I wish I had a beach in the area that I could go take it on barefoot with a surfboard, but you know, I'm kind of stuck with my resources here. But anyways, thanks for watching. If you want to check out the full review for this bike, including all the specifications and measurements, go to ElectricBikeReview.com. While you're there, you can compare this with a lot of other electric bikes, and you can also participate in the forums if you want to ask a question or participate in the community. So thanks for watching, guys. Ride safe.